we'll be making it natural.
Yo.
Hey, what up? My name is AJ Louden. I've loved graffiti and street art for a long time, over 15 years. I've traveled all around the world to see art, make my own art, and I'm lucky enough these days to say that I make art for a living. So most of the art that I make with spray paint, and I do a lot of really big murals. So you can find them all over the city of Edmonton, all over Alberta, and like I said, in a few other countries too. So I love to make art that's really colorful. I like working on different types of surfaces. And one thing that I paint a lot are portraits of my son P. So that's Piney P. He's a character I made up. I call him my son. And we're here today to teach you how to draw letters. So one of the things I love about lettering is you can draw the same 26 letters from the alphabet a million different ways. Actually, I'd probably say it's infinite. So we're just going to go through a couple examples today, and I'm going to try and show you a little bit about how graffiti can influence your lettering. So we're going to start off with tags first. A tag is like a graffiti artist's signature. So when I'm trying to come up with a tag, and I don't want it to be boring, I want it to look cool and interesting, I just start with really simple lettering, and then I break it down. So you could see I write out my son Piney P's name, and I look at each letter, and I think about all of the lines that it takes to make that letter up. And then all I have to do is make each one of those lines more interesting, and then put them together. So you can see at the bottom of the letter I, instead of just a straight bar, I put a heart shape. I'm gonna use some curved lines for the letter N. Instead of going straight down on the back of the E, I did kind of that zigzag lightning bolt shape. So you can kind of get the idea. And this takes a lot of time and practice and experimentation. So I'm going to show you a bunch of different examples. And I want you guys to try your own, and we're each going to get to about 5 different tags each. So one other thing you might try is like some letters being smaller, other letters being bigger, maybe they're tilted at different angles, and this can give it its own style. All right, so again, we're gonna draw 5 different tags. So I want you guys to start drawing along with me. I'm gonna take it a little bit slower so you can follow along a little more easily. So I might shade in the tops of my letters a little bit thicker than the bottom. You can see how that makes them kind of look cool. I might mix uppercase and lowercase letters. And again, I'm just taking each line that it takes to make that letter up, and I'm making each line a little more interesting. So I might turn the letter I into like an arrow shape. And then instead of a dot at the top, I might put this like big circle, halo kind of looking thing around it. For the letter N, I might actually do it backwards. And for all of these letters, again, I'm kind of making the top parts of the letters thicker than the bottom parts of the letters for the most part. And so by being consistent with that, I can kind of give it a cool style. So I kind of messed up on the Y there. Let me try again. Cool. So here's another kind of completely different style. So as you guys are coming up with 5 different tags, you can write your name, your first name, your last name. You can write your friend's name, your Xbox gamer tag, whatever you want. And you can use that to come up with letters to write. So you can see on this one, I'm kind of using this spiral shape, and I'm being consistent. A couple of the different letters have that shape in them. And so here's a completely different style. So if you're finding yourself a little bit stuck, maybe you got one or two styles out and it's hard to come up with a third one, look around you for inspiration. So I mean, if you have a t-shirt that has your favorite band on it or something like that, look at the logo and see how the letters are styled there and see how you can use that on your own letters. So far with the tags, you'll notice they're more like a signature than they are like a 3D letter that pops off the wall. So that's what a tag is. It's more like a signature. And you'll see some other types of graffiti called pieces coming up later. So sometimes if I want to add to my tag a little bit, I'll put like an arrow under it or some quotation marks beside it, just to mix it up a little. And another thing I like to do when I'm thinking of how my letters could look, or when I'm thinking of each line when I'm putting that letter together, I like to think of the letters like dancing a little bit, like just to give them a little bit more style, right? So they're not just like standing there really boring. So if they're having a little bit of a party within the word, it makes it look cooler. So you can see with this one I'm working on right now, it's all straight lines. So like maybe this dude is at the party doing the robot. Cool, so we'll just do one more quick one. So again, you guys want to come up with like 5 completely different tag styles. Really try and be creative and come up with things that are like way different than each other. All right, so pause, choose your favorite tag, and copy it onto a clean piece of paper. So next, we're going to take your favorite tag and we're going to turn it into a piece. So by starting with a simple signature and really understanding the way your letters flow, it'll give you a better looking piece overall. This is a lot of times how graffiti artists will work. So you can see what I'm doing with the word piece right now. I'm just making it a little bit thicker, making it bolder. The letters are kind of harder to read now because they're overlapping, but I'm going to add an outline to make them more obvious. So we're going to do this again on another word, but this is just to show you an example. And there's a bunch of different tools that you can use for turning a tag into a piece. So even if you're just working with pencil, you can kind of shade in the letters lightly and then use a bit of a heavier hand for the outline. Make a darker outline. So you can see on the left side of the letters, I've made them a little bit thicker to make them pop off the page a little bit. And now I'm going to add another color in there. So you can see, again, it adds a little bit more depth. I'm going to add a highlight. And when I'm working on this highlight for the letters, I like to think like there's a light bulb on one side of the letters. This is on the right side of those letters. All right, so you have your tag. You picked your favorite tag, you transfer it onto a clean piece of paper, and now you're going to draw around it. So feel free to pause and rewind this section as much as you need to. And you can see I'm not being super careful as I draw the shapes around. I can kind of have a little bit of fun with it here. So not all the shapes that I'm drawing need to be the same thickness. And you can see where the letters touch, I let them overlap a little bit. And that makes the word feel like it kind of sticks together a little bit better. So next we're going to fill everything in. I'm going to cheat a little bit here. So we're filling in the insides of the letters. And so when you do this, it's just called a fill. And so the next step after this will be called an outline. So you can see it's a little bit hard to read the letters now. They're kind of all mushed together, so you really have to remember your sketch. And now you're going to go around the edge of everything. And in some of those places where the letters overlap, you don't actually need to separate them completely. So you'll see when I go to finish the rest of the letter I here. That part where the P and the I are touching, I don't actually need to fully fully separate those letters. It kind of looks cool if I leave them a little bit stuck or welded together like that. So just take your time with this section, and you're just trying to define each letter a bit. And remember, try and go back to your sketch a bit. And whichever tools you're using for this can work. So if you're using some pencil, again, you can just kind of shade lightly to fill the inside of the letters and then press a little harder to do the outline. Or you can use a pen or a marker for the outline and then pencil to shade the inside and kind of mix media there. Or if you're using pencil crayons, you can use different colors. And so what I'm doing now is adding some depth. I'm adding basically a drop shadow on the sides of the letters. And so I'm just trying to be consistent. So on the left side of all the letters is where that drop shadow pops out. I'll fill some of that in. And the whole point of this drop shadow is just to make the letters pop out a little bit more off the page. So you can see again, we just started from a tag that was just based on those simple lines. We kind of made each line more interesting. Now we've made each line a little bit thicker so that the letters can overlap a little bit, and we've added an outline, and now we're adding this drop shadow to make it a little bit more 3D looking. And I'm just using black and gray to kind of keep it simple, but definitely feel free to apply some color and make things bright. Actually, maybe I'll put a little more flavor into this one. I'll give you guys a little bit of color. So you can see again, some of the lines between the letters aren't quite separated. So the letters feel like they're touching or they're like welded together a little bit. So I'm just going through adding a few little details here. Kind of cleaning up some of my lines. All right, so now I'm gonna add a highlight. And just like on the last piece, I'm gonna imagine that there's a light bulb on one side of the piece. So if there's a light bulb on the right side of this piece, the light would kind of hit the right edge of each letter. And so that's where the white line lands. This takes a little bit of practice and just kind of some experimenting, but that's sort of the rough theory behind the whole thing. All right, so you can see it looks like it's lit up a little bit, like the letters got some shine to them. So now to make it even feel a little bit more 3D, I'm gonna put a little bit of color in this one. I'm gonna put some blue into that shadow part of the letters. So you can see already it gives the letters a little bit more life. Maybe I'll even add a little bit of lighter blue in there too. All right. Cool, so you can see that helps it pop a bit more. So in graffiti, this is called a force field sometimes. And so I'm just gonna do a partial force field, add a little bit more color here. So you can see that this almost makes the letters feel like they're moving a little bit. Maybe like the whole piece is like dancing around or vibrating. Or maybe it's just shooting off some energy around it. Might add some drips here to make it feel like it was spray painted. Awesome. All right, thanks guys for following along. So you can catch up with me at AJ Louden on Instagram, every social media platform. And now we're gonna do a bonus round. So if you're still sticking around, there's a little bit more for you to try out if you like. This one's not gonna be letters, we're gonna try something else, a little surprise. So we're actually gonna try to draw a picture of my son, that Piney, looking spooky. Hey. So I'm gonna go through this one pretty quickly. So you're gonna start with some circles, make some ovals for his glasses. Give him a big frown because that's how he rolls, that's his attitude. He's very focused, that's his focus face. And then you can pick whatever kind of glasses you want for him. So make sure to give him some style. Maybe a little bling on there. And then this is Bat Piney, so he has a couple fangs. I want to make sure his leaves are looking cool. And he has some wings too, a couple bat wings. So I'm going to draw some shapes out for those, do some shading in his glasses, add some details to his body and his leaves. And I'm going to go through and just kind of clean everything up a bit and then add some color. So you can see I start with some of the darker colors first. And I go a little bit lighter from there. And I'm thinking about 2 different light sources. So one of the lights that's shining on him from the left side is a little bit more orange. And one of the lights that's shining on him from the right side, kind of behind him, is a bit more purple. That's why he kind of glows from the 2 directions there. Boom, there he is. That's my son P. Hey. Thanks again, guys, for following along. Hope this is fun. Have a good rest of the school year.